In the early 1980s, a role of information and psychological warfare and of psychological operations in the USA rose sharply. Immediately after coming to the White House, Ronald Reagan announced his national security strategy, which consisted of 4 components: diplomatic, economic, military and information. It should be noted that in the early 1980s the USA was able to achieve information dominance over the Soviet Union. If in the area of nuclear missiles between the USSR and the USA there was parity, in the field of information the advantage of the USA was enormous. Thus, the USA controlled 75% of the global flow of television programs, 50% of movie time, 90% of TV news. In 1980 appeared CNN, NBC. Therefore, the General Staff of the Information War against the Soviet Union under the leadership of David Rockefeller made further adjustments to the overall strategy. In 1981 in the United States appeared the Project The Truth, which included the organization and promotion of the attractiveness of the USA, with the active use of satellite television. In 1983 the Project Democracy appeared, which was set up at the headquarters of the National Security Council (NSC) for the psychological impact on the USSR through immigrant centers, organizing direct TV broadcasting via satellite from the United States to American embassies in socialist countries, the support of opposition parties and labor unions. Speaking in the British Parliament in June of 1981, President Reagan said that the outcome of the struggle waged in the world will not depend on the number of bombs and missiles but on aspirations and ideas. In January of 1983 President Reagan signed Directive No. 77, entitled Public Diplomacy related to the objectives of national security. This directive gave a broader definition of public diplomacy and claimed that it also includes the activities of the United States government to ensure the support of our national security policy. The directive also meant organizing and conducting a wide range of information and cultural activities and to coordinate social, information, and political activities of the United States administration in the work of broadcasting. The doctrine of the information war against the USSR became somewhat different when Ronald Reagan came to power. While retaining the previous direction of information attacks on the USSR, the formation of a fifth column, human rights issues, management, decision-making, etc., it stressed the need for the use of advanced information technologies, satellite TV, Internet, etc. The efforts of all governmental and commercial structures of American intelligence were aimed at achieving the main goal: for a man to appear in the Soviet leadership who would implement the collapse of the USSR. The man has been identified in advance: Mikhail Gorbachev. Ronald Reagan increased the coordination of intellectual centers in the information war against the Soviet Union with the National Security Council, a new structure of dealing with the Soviet Union appeared. the new structure of the mechanism in the information war against the Soviet Union, with the support of Mikhail Gorbachev, was as follows. First level. Strategic Centers of Global Modeling, London. Committee of 300. Round Table, Chatham House. Its representative was Margaret Thatcher, who was the first to probe Gorbachev in 1984. Second level. The General Staff headed by David Rockefeller, an operational link with Gorbachev. Control Center, New York. Council on Foreign Relations. Third level. National Security Council (NSC). United States. The coordination of American, British and other countries' intelligence to block the competitors of Mikhail Gorbachev and the prompt assistance in Gorbachev's fight against his opponents. Control Center, Washington. Fourth level. The Trilateral Commission. Concerted action by international organizations to support the restructuring undertaken by Mikhail Gorbachev. Control Center, Washington. Under Reagan, the constitutional and state agencies of the USA began to be used by the new British Empire even more as focal points and information guides of psychological warfare. The central role was played by the National Security Council (NSC), which worked closely with the British structures of information warfare. In January of 1987, a committee was established to plan advocacy at the cabinet level. It was headed by the United States National Security Advisor William P. Clark, Jr. In the Doctrine of Psychological Propaganda and National Security, the NSC qualifies as a central link in the strategic analysis and conduct of psychological operations, along with the United States Department of State, the United States Department of Defense, the CIA, and the United States Information Agency. The USA coordinated intelligence activities with other countries. One of the participants in the information war against the Soviet Union wrote a book in which he noted, at the operational level in the fight against Russia, the special services and intelligence networks of the United States, Israel, Zionist organizations, the Vatican, and Western Europe were united. Peter Schweitzer, Victory, the Reagan administration's secret strategy that hastened the collapse of the Soviet Union, 1994. The coordinated mechanism of global information and psychological impact on the leadership and population of the USSR appeared. United States President, FBI National Security Branch, Ministries Departments, the American Organization. The coordinated effort of information and psychological structures, government, public and commercial organizations has certainly borne fruit. In 1985, the General Secretary of the CPSU wasn't Grigory Romanov but Mikhail Gorbachev. Generally speaking, there were four groups within the elite of the CPSU: 1. Technocrats, followers of Alexei Kosygin; 2. Statists, Stalinists Grigory Romanov; 3. Dogmatics, followers of Mikhail Suslov; 4. Globalists, Trotskyists Mikhail Gorbachev. The balance of power is interesting because, Gorbachev became a protege of the globalists and the dogmatics. In accordance with the strategy of George F. Kennan, Sovietologists gave their advice on how to best promote Gorbachev with regard to the situation in the USSR. Intense research work on the definition of weak links in the Central Committee of the CPSU was conducted. All the links of the members of the Politburo were taken into account: personal service, family, information, psychological operations against some Grigory Romanov were conducted, and a favorable image of others, Mikhail Gorbachev, was created. Unfortunately, the candidacy of Mikhail Gorbachev was proposed at a Politburo meeting by the technocrat Andrei Gromyko, who led the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the USSR for 28 years. This decided the outcome of the confrontation in favor of the globalists, Trotskyists. This strategic mistake by Gromyko was already grasped by him at the moment when, in his place, without any agreement with him, Gorbachev appointed the ardent globalist, Trotskyist and Russophobe Eduard Shevardnadze, whose work on unilateral concessions in foreign policy had no boundaries. Moreover, the incompetent Shevardnadze began a grand cleansing and repression inside the Soviet Foreign Ministry against professionals, which was in fact a purposeful destruction of everything positive that was done by Andrei Gromyko. In 2009, Nelly Gorslavskaya wrote a book about this fatal error of the most informed Minister of Foreign Affairs in the world. Andrei Gromyko, Oshibka Misternet. Here's how the famous Russian sociologist Alexander Zinoviev described the algorithm of the external promotion of Mikhail Gorbachev to the post of General Secretary in his 1994 book The Russian Experiment. 1. The whole science, Kremlinology, was created to study the specific features of the political elite of the USSR. From the author, 170 universities and research centers in the USA were busy studying the USSR, and 50 of them have been doing this on a regular basis. 2. The Kremlinologists studied the Central Committee apparatus in the most meticulous manner. They didn't just study it but had influence on the party leaders. How? Through the media, through aides, advisors, through diplomats, journalists, KGB agents. It's possible to recognize as a fact that the West in the 1980s started an ever-increasing manipulation of the top Soviet leadership. The author agrees with the conclusion of Zinoviev. The process of reflexive control from the Council on Foreign Relations toward the decision-making process in the Soviet Union was successful. 3. The Kremlinologists examined the situation in the top Soviet leadership already under Leonid Brezhnev. Yury Andropov and Konstantin Chernenko had been sick for a long time and couldn't be reached. So the main role, anyway, had to be played by two people, Romanov or Gorbachev. Having thoroughly studied the quality of both and perhaps already having somehow picked up Gorbachev on the hook earlier, the relevant services of the West decided to remove and clear the way for Gorbachev. 4. in the media slanders about Romanov were invented, and he was discredited in every way. 5. Look now at the elections of the Secretary General. In fact, they were clearly part of the operation of relevant services in the USA. Even many in the West had no doubt. Everything was deliberately scaled down so that only 8 people could choose. Politburo member Volodymyr Shcherbetsky, who could have voted against Gorbachev, was detained under some pretext and couldn't fly from the USA. The election was not reported to another member of the Politburo, who was on vacation. That man was Romanov himself, who also probably would have voted against Gorbachev. If these two hadn't voted, Gorbachev wouldn't have become General Secretary. He passed by a margin of 1 vote. What would have happened to world history if Gorbachev had not become General Secretary of the CPSU in 1985? The USSR would have existed now,